Alright, so here's the video about my Mototec bike and all the upgrades that I did. First, to give you a bit of context, I must say that I'm basically ride MTBs for a few years, but don't have any experience with motos, so this is kind of my first try. And basically I wanted to get like a small and light trail bike to begin with, to have some fun on the trails, in the dirt. And I found this bike on the marketplace and got it secondhand. So I'm gonna talk about the upgrades that I did, because I did do quite a few and the bike has grown significantly. So for those of you watching who is thinking about doing something similar, here are the things that you could do. So we're gonna start with the chassis itself. The main thing that I have upgraded is put this TD Pro forks. They are about 60 to 70 mil, or about 3-inch longer than the stock forks, also much beefier, and that helped to raise the bike a fair bit. Also, I used a high raise bar for the ergonomics, and I had to change the bar clamps because the bar clamps that came with the TD Pro fork, they were just too tall. So I've installed this. As you can see, these are the new bar clamps, but also I'm using this, would you call those stems? Basically like bar extensions, so it helps bring the handlebar to the front, which is quite needed if you're a big guy like me. I'm about 184, so that's like 6'1". So yeah, I need to make it all the bit bigger I can. So to compensate the rise of because of the forks, I also upgraded the shock, and also because the stock shock is crap. So I got this D&M shock, and I have actually had to angle grind a bit to fit this RockShox spring, because when you buy it off Amazon or AliExpress, they only have them in 250 pound or 350 pound spring. And honestly, me being a big guy, about 86 kilos, probably around 90 with all the gear, even the 350 pound spring would be too light. So I bought this RockShox 450 pound spring, and yeah, that was really good. And also I found out that from the factory, they don't put there enough air. So if you see this little screw here, if you take it out, you will need a special needle and a shock pump, and you can pump more air into it, which also affects the way how firm the suspension feels. Because I think for the majority of people, what they're struggling with these bikes, especially with stock suspension, is that it is way too soft. And you can of course tighten this as much as you want, because at first I had a weak spring, so you see I was knocking hard on it with a screwdriver and a hammer just to tighten that, barely destroyed those rings here. But now with the correct spring, you see I only have the preload just a tiny bit, and that's enough for me, especially with the added air. So what else? Here we go to our controls. So this is actually what they sell on eBay as Suron throttle, and I think it actually resembles the stock Suron throttle. It even says here Suron, haha. Maybe, let me see if I can get this into focus. Nah, not really, but you get the point. So then I went ahead and upgraded the brakes. Well, at least so far the rear brake. I put this Magura MT5s. And I love the stock brake for the front brake so far, but I think I'm gonna upgrade it soon. And also here next to the throttle, instead of the shitty battery gauge that comes with the stock throttle, I just installed a dedicated voltmeter. So there we are. What else? Basically, when I bought the TD Pro fork, I had to kind of just adjust a little bit the stock brake mounting bracket. Basically I've drilled an extra hole. If you see here, that's the old hole, but the spacing for the bolts on the fork is different comparing to the stock fork. So yeah, had to adjust that a little bit, but that was fairly easy. And I think the plate is steel, but it's really soft, so it didn't take long for me to drill it through. So what else? One of the very important upgrades actually are foot pegs, but even more importantly, this gasket here that allows to lower them by about like 6 centimeters, like 2.5 inches basically. So as you can see, I bought this much bigger foot pegs. They're almost 2 times as wide as the original, and I had them lowered by about 6 centimeters. Basically, I took the bike to a welder. He knows what he's doing. As you can see, this thing is quite reinforced, and it is thick steel, about like 5 millimeters, maybe even 6. He also told me that one of the hollow tubes, like that runs here, he had put a metal rod inside it just to reinforce it, to be on the safe side. Yes, and this feels way more comfortable now. With the foot pegs lowered, I finally sit in a way that I don't feel my knees are about to touch my ears. All right, as for the rest, oh, here we go. This is also my slightly monstrous looking creation. Basically, I bought a CRF tall seat. I took out the foam, but I kept the original foam of the Mototec seat. Just had to cut it a little bit and then put the CRF tall seat foam on top of it and used its cover. So I think this gave me about 4 to 5 centimeter rise in the seat. And actually, as you can see, the seat is pretty much flat, like parallel to the ground. Maybe like a tiny bit tilted forward, but not to the extent that you really notice. So I'm quite comfortable with that. And again, it brings you higher up in the bike, makes you sit higher, taller. That's really nice for your ergonomics. All right, so yeah, I guess that's about it for now. Maybe next time I'm going to talk a little bit about the electrical changes I've done, because I did put a vest controller, which is not quite common here, but I'm going to do it once I get my 60-volt battery. All right, so for now, let's wrap it up, and wish you guys all have fun and hope this will be useful for somebody.